Inwood, New York City. Welcome to Inwood Art Works On Air. It's where we meet the musicians, filmmakers, writers, theater makers, and artists of all stripes who make their home what we affectionately call upstate Manhattan. I'm your host, Aaron Sims, and today we welcome set designer John McDermott. John is a scenic designer who resides here in Inwood and has designed for many off-Broadway theaters, including Bedlam Theater, The Mint, The Flea, Rattlestick Theater, Colt Coeur, and many others. Regional credits include Barrington Stage Company, Shakespeare Co, American Repertory Theatre, among many others. In addition, he has taught an associate professor of theater at Adelphi University. We're going to talk to him about his career and his work and so much more, but first, let me welcome you, John, to Inwood Art Works On Air. It's great to see you.
Thanks. Good to see you too, Aaron.
Long time coming to get you here. It's fun to have you here on campus at Good Shepherd. We did a show here together many moons ago.
Yeah.
We were kind of chatting. It was during Superstorm Sandy, right?
Yes. Right. I also lost my wallet that week too.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
Did you ever find it?
No, never found it.
Oh, jeez.
Yeah.
How do you?
And I lost it this week too.
What?
Yeah, I haven't found it yet.
But it wasn't here. I hope
What
you
a coincidence.
Oh my gosh. Full circle.
It was somewhere between Good Shepherd and home.
Gotcha.
Which is a block away.
Yeah.
Yeah, so.
Wow.
Yeah. And this week too, I also lost it somewhere between Broadway and home.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well,
the vortex, Inwood, is the center of everything.
Exactly. Apparently, it's just
Yes.
New York City sucks you dry in many ways.
Yes.
But yeah, we're just chatting about that. It was pretty fun. But I remember you rolling painting on the floors of the auditorium, trying to get a show together, middle of a tropical storm here,
Right.
Storm, and I was doing whatever I was doing on the stage, technical directing the show, and but we made it happen.
Yeah, it was a great experience. I think the budget was $200.
Yeah.
And that was great. And it was a perfect size show for that space. And it was great to be so close to the theater. And having a few days off because of the storm actually helped.
Yeah. And like I said, the commute was worth it, right? So,
Definitely. Yeah.
Well, how did you find your way into working in the theater, John?
I mean, the short answer I always give is I couldn't find a cooking job because I was a chef in my teens and 20s and worked in a lot of restaurants and was like working my way up the ladder. And then I moved to Western Massachusetts and I couldn't find a cooking job, essentially. So I ended up managing a kitchen for a couple months. Then that didn't quite work out. And then I got a waitering job, which I had never done, but I kind of lied and said I had because I worked in restaurants for 15 years. And then that allowed me to have a lot more free time. So I thought I'd go back to school. So I was in my late 20s and went back to college I wanted to study art history and work in a museum and restore paintings. And I had some theater credits from trying college earlier before, they said, why don't you come in as a theater major and you can do art history and then probably go to grad school or something. So that's what I did. I studied a lot of art history and anthropology and also did theater classes. And then the theater bug kind of bit. So I graduated when I was 31 with my undergrad degree, worked in theater for a year and still at the restaurant where I was waitering and then went to grad school. So mid-30s, I finished grad school and determined to be a set designer, although I only did costume design as an undergrad and went into grad school wanting to do costume and sets. And there were a lot of costume designers in grad school and not many set designers, and they kept dropping out. So I ended up just doing set.
Wow.
Yeah.
Usually it's the other way around.
Yeah.
People are working in theater and then they find jobs cooking.
Yes, I know. Yeah. Well, that's what I think I got in. I was afraid to go into theater when I was in my teenage years and early 20s because I thought, how do you make a living doing it? No one really explained that to me, and I couldn't quite understand how it all worked and really who did what. So high school theater helped that a little bit, but still it seemed very arbitrary because I don't know. I just never quite knew how it all worked and how people were chosen and how it was a small enough unit that I liked. It was interesting to me, but I also didn't quite know the economics of it were really interesting to me, but no one explained it to me. And so I think during my 20s, and I learned, I can do anything to earn a living and to feed myself, but what do I really want to do? And that's when I thought, I'd like to, after working in noisy, crowded, loud, stressful restaurants, I thought I want to work in a museum in a room by myself with one painting and one light and a brush and spend like 11 years restoring something.
You're Dickensian and you're Garrett there.
Yes, exactly. I just needed quiet. But then going back into theater, I thought, oh, well, why not? I can always earn a living doing something else, which is often the case, like you said. I might as well be doing something that I want to. So it satisfied the art part of what I like to do, like making things. And I also finally felt like I had a practical side to my life that I could apply to it.
Yeah, but it's interesting. I feel nowadays it seems there's like educational theater programs everywhere. There's all these like community arts programs everywhere. But I have to agree with you. Like, also being a young man in the theater, like, I was totally mystified by the whole world. It seemed like you had to be tapped in a secret society to come in. I had nobody in my family in theater.
Me either.
Yeah. So even worse. And then you know, in high school, it's kind of like, well, you know, this is for fun, not for a career, not for a vocation.
Right. And we all worked in our family fairly early on. You know, I had a paper route, then worked as a dishwasher in a restaurant as soon as I could drive, you know. So we were always working in our family. So it was like, you have to earn a living, you know, first, and art is second. And yeah, I think a lot of us in our family had art talent, but nobody really made a job out of it.
Yeah. Well, obviously, you've done a wonderful job, and you're so creative in your work. Did you? I guess loud, noisy places like restaurants are almost like assimilative to theater. Working in the theater with crazy, you know, getting in the production process. Has that informed your creative life anyway? The way you work with people?
Totally. Yeah, definitely restaurants, because the great thing about that is that it's all about timing and space and location and distance and everybody else's sense of that. And, you know, for 3 years, I was the breakfast chef at the Black Dog Tavern on Martha's Vineyard, which was insane in the summer, especially. And you develop an internal clock as to how things have to go, which is great for working in the theater. You have to get it done before it opens. I mean, that's essential, the deadline. And so that was very helpful to me from that life. Was that your question? Yes.
It is now. No, it absolutely is, because it's you have to have a theater very much. I was talking to Ken, the technical director, off Mike earlier about you work backwards in many ways of where you need to be.
Yeah, right.
And then you work and find, okay, what has to be done to get there. And your internal clock is very much. It's a wonderful way of saying it. But so it's listen, organization and communication is qualities in our careers very much required.
Oh, yeah, you had asked about the spaces of that. Yeah, I mean, that's another thing is I think actually growing up in the house that I grew up in Massachusetts, it was very practical to some extent. I had 5 brothers and sisters and my parents and sometimes a pet. So it was a lot of people living in a not large space, and things never really changed. Like the furniture never changed. What was on the walls never changed. Like that just wasn't part of who we, I don't know, it seemed permanent. And I thought, oh, it's always permanent. And therefore I can attribute like this kind of thing to this kind of person, or my family has this kind of taste or whatever. It's just all around it. It wasn't mine specifically, but, and that really did inform me. I started to notice like, oh, people have different shells around them. And does that explain who they are? So I feel like it came from my family first. Like I feel like, and that I could have been a writer, or I could have been a painter or something like that if I had applied that to that kind of, but for some reason the, theater seemed more, I don't know, alive to me.
Your family was very much like the O'Neills, you know?
Yeah, it was a little bit. I mean,
Massachusetts and all. I'm just saying.
Yeah, there was
New England. I'm just saying.
There was some of that in my family. The bottle. You know, Irish Catholic. What are you going to say? No one was spouting Shakespeare though.
There you go.
Okay, which was good. I think I would have run for the hills
Well,
at that point.
and I want to bookend this next question.
Yeah.
Where we talked about like a looking forward, looking back kind of thing.
Yeah.
Is that so we talked about where you're from, and then you just I believe just ended your tenure teaching at Adelphi University.
Yeah, I'm leaving at the end of this semester.
Leaving. And,
yeah,
I mean, I just wanted to bring that up because it's like how appropriate. I mean, come on, what a wonderful achievement to be able to come from a place of in a sense, as in theater, going, I don't know, like. And I'll say insecurity from speaking for myself and going, what is this thing? How does one make a life in theater and a vocation of doing it? And here you are teaching people how to have a vocation. So it's pretty wonderful, John.
Thanks. Yeah, and it's hard to know how I affect people as a teacher. And I think it's changed. I've been doing it 11 years, and I feel like I've gotten worse at it over the last couple of years.
Well, I don't think they would keep you for 11 years if you got worse. But,
well, no, but I have tenure, so they can't.
Oh, okay.
But I, of course, I constantly reevaluate what I'm doing and how I'm doing it and what effect it's having. And I think COVID really did change things to some extent and changed people. But I also feel that, I went through, it took me 13 years to get through college, to finish my undergrad from start to finish, because I started right out of high school, dropped out after a year, started in another one, dropped out after a year and a half. So, and then finally finished. It's, I feel like, my sense of uncertainty and my sense of taking a long time to finish has helped me communicate with students, saying like, I didn't know what I wanted to do. I didn't know how to do it. Take your time. It's fine. And I think they appreciate that. But also I feel like, I have a lot less influence on students as a teacher these days because the internet has so much influence in whatever ways they access it. But so I feel like it's hard to compete with that in a way. And it's hard to understand what is urgent about their life. The way that my urgency was like, how am I going to do this? I felt a lot of fear, but I don't see as much fear about that in students. Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know why that is.
So that's kind of what you learned from them then, is that it's a little less... Well, is that what you've learned from them? Your takeaways from...
I mean, partly it is to like, I feel like when I first got there, I was telling them like, you don't have to figure it all out right now. And now I do feel a little bit like they're saying to me, you don't have to figure it all out right now. Because I'm going through a lot of transition myself. I'm giving up this secure job.
Right.
My husband has transitioned to become my wife. I'm moving from New York to Berlin, Germany, and I'm giving up a parking spot.
That might be, if you're a New Yorker, I know those other things are big, but the last one, I think, my wife can tell you right now, that would be the deal breaker for her, giving up the parking spot.
Yeah, I know. Plus living in Inwood. I mean, I walk out my door every day and it's like, oh my God, this is so beautiful. Like half a block away is this giant park.
I'm going to miss you, man. You're part of the fabric of this neighborhood.
Yeah, thank you. You are too. I love seeing you around everywhere and having a connection to you and everything you've done for the neighborhood.
Oh, thanks, John. And likewise, like I said, it's always great to see your name on a playbill. As a man of the theater myself, I'll say, seeing different shows, and we've worked with a lot of the, I feel like there's sticky, kind of like what do you call it, we're like a web of people we know that we've all worked with, and and possible people you're working with and coming up, and so it's. We wish you only the best, and we know you're always welcome to come back. And hopefully, I'll be here when you come back.
Yeah, I'm sure you will.
But the thing is, who knows, right?
Yeah.
It's like, like this informs too. And I was going to say something later in this, but I wouldn't say it now. It's like, has living here informed your work?
Totally. Yes. It's funny. The first 10 years I was living in New York, I moved here in 1999, and the first 10 years, it seemed to be I was doing so many new plays set in New York City apartments. And, Lucy Thurber, I did one twice.
Sure.
Killers, Another Family. And, a bunch of shows. Cage Love by Chris Denham that Adam Rapp directed. And I was doing all these New York interior apartments. And I lived in one. And it's like, oh, my God, the research is great. And my friends were living in those. And that's what they were looking
Can I come
for.
over?
Yeah, well, it's just, white walls,
Right.
some molding,
Sparse.
the doors that had one panel in them and the peephole, all that stuff that, it's hard to find pictures of that, but then it's like, oh my God, I'm living in it.
Yeah.
I mean, one of my favorite experiences actually was I was doing a new play called The Belle of Belfast, which is a great play by this guy, Nate Edelman, who's Jewish, but he wrote this play about Catholic priests in Belfast in the 80s. And he's a young kid. He was like 22 when he wrote it. And it was directed by, it was at the Cherry Lane Mentor Project, and Eric Tucker directed it. That's where I met Eric. And Eric was, it was my first experience working with him, and I came to understand that he really likes things very minimal, and they can be fairly abstract. He makes the world with the actors and a few props. And so he finally said, I think the only thing we really need is like 3 chairs, maybe 2 chairs or 3 chairs and a table. And so I finally found a table in a dumpster, actually. Maybe, I don't know if in this neighborhood, I forget where exactly. But then it was mostly set in this Catholic rectory, kind of like, these facilities in a way. And a confessional and things like that. So I was walking by the Good Shepherd one morning, and outside were 3 chairs. 2 chairs, metal chairs, probably from the 1920s or 30s. Those, I think they're called battleship chairs, with padded seats, and then an armchair, same style. And it's like, only Catholics have ever sat on these chairs, and it's for a play where only Catholic. And that was Inwood. Like Inwood gave me so much stuff like that.
Well,
a lot of
Irish,
research,
early neighborhood.
Yeah, exactly. Plus, just being able to live in a place. The first week it bothered me that I had to go 45 minutes downtown and back the first week. And 25 years later, after that, it was like no problem, because it was nice to sort of decompress and then walk out of the subway, and you're surrounded by trees, and it's very quiet, and the apartments were cheap. When I first moved here, it was $875, and now I pay like $14.20. Still a great deal.
That's
like
good. Yeah.
The ceiling leaks, the plumbing in the bathroom is iffy, but it's a great. I love living here and surrounded by artists and stuff like that. I'd been living here like 5 years before I discovered that Mikiko, Suzuki McAdams, lived across the street from me. I had met her in Seattle in 1995 when she was an undergrad, and then we ran into each other at the Light in the Piazza out-of-town tryout in Chicago, and we started talking, and she lived across the street. So that was great. So
you're pain pals. You go through your windows.
Yes, yes. We've been we've known each other for 30 years almost. I guess. Yeah.
Wow. Do you have any hard and true principles that guide you when you're approaching a design for a play?
Well, now I definitely get everything done on time. Once or twice in the last couple of years, I've been a little iffy with deadlines, but a lot's been going on. But it's really, you got to do that. Everybody's working on a deadline, and the sooner they have everything, the better. Mm-hmm. I mean, I've learned also don't offer unasked for criticism. Learned it the hard way a few times, and it's caused problems in relationships with theater people. And as you've noted, like everybody knows everybody. At some point, everybody works with everybody else, and people will ask you for your opinion if they want it, but otherwise, don't give it.
Sage words of advice, folks, to keep with you as you move through this life.
Yeah, I won't name names.
No, that's... You just took your own advice, okay? Good man. Yeah. Good man.
And then I guess my principle has always been like really understanding the play, and then the director's approach to it, because I don't want to be a set designer who creates something that you look at and think, oh my God, that's amazing. Like, it should not do that. The play should be amazing, or the actors doing the play should be amazing, but it shouldn't be about anything else. There can be moments where it's, it's present, but I feel like I think it should really be not a star of the show. So that's been my principle, sort of. I mean, I realized that earlier on. I remember saying in graduate school in the middle of a class, it's like, I think the best design for a show is no design. And people are like, oh. But, time and time again, and some of it's been working with Bedlam, I've been shown that you can have so much with so little. Mm-hmm. And, or even doing the show here, with Up Theater.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and budgets sometimes dictate that, but I couldn't agree more. The best
Yeah.
designs you don't notice.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah.
And let the imagination fill the
Yeah.
gaps, right?
One of the first theater experiences I remember, I must have been in junior high school maybe, and my sister was involved, I think, in a theater company in our town, and they did a production of I Never Sang for My Father, which I don't know if it's done that much anymore. It's a very popular 70s play.
It's not done very much anymore.
Yeah, and I don't know if it's outdated or whatnot, but I remember there's these scenes where it was like black curtains and a spotlight, and I was like, this is amazing.
Yeah.
Just on the actor, and I was like, wow, like I just didn't think that you could do that.
And you're also thinking, wow, boy, it saves me so much problems and
yeah,
trouble.
right.
Crew calls are so short.
Yes.
Oh, that's wonderful.
Yes, right. Yeah, the set
Text could
designer
be
probably,
so easy.
but then again, as every
right.
set designer will say, simplicity is not simple
No,
either.
right.
Yeah.
Well, it takes a while to get there.
Yeah.
And break it. Start chipping away at the block of
Yes.
marble, right?
Right.
As far as like as an idea,
Right,
And
right.
seeing and how you're arriving to it. And,
Yeah.
also something you said too, I think is really interesting too. That combining two of your thoughts, I was like, it's like you're understanding the play, understanding the director's vision of the play, not giving out criticism when unasked, and also not enforcing your version of the design on the play or the director's vision either.
Right.
Those are really important things.
Yes.
Just
And
like
I've
an
done
actor-
that once or
Just like an
twice.
actor shouldn't import, like, well, I think this role should be, well, you have to fit into everyone else's world.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. I did that twice. Imposed my idea on it, I think, and in different ways. Once, very obviously thinking I know better, and then one time through other actions, kind of thinking, no, I should do it this way. And both times it didn't. I realized, oh no, I can't. It doesn't work out that way. You have to really. Ultimately, it's the directors. Yeah.
If you could wave a magic wand, John,
Yeah.
what would you fix about the theater today? Because you talked about, we're a different world now, post-COVID.
Yeah.
Working with people's different. Budgets are different. You're different.
Yeah. Well, I mean, really, I have a hard time separating theater or probably any kind of performance culture and money. And it's hard to know too whether I don't think anybody benefits by struggling financially. I don't think there's any moral high ground in that. We all go through it because that's the society we live in. But and I know in Europe there's a lot of arts that are subsidized, and I've heard stories of like concerts that are 50-piece orchestras that have 20 people attending because they're so well subsidized. They happen all the time. But I don't know. I feel like there has to be lots of diverse, multi-pronged ways to financially support artists, whether it is housing or venues or materials or something like that. And I don't know the best way to do that. But I feel like if I had a magic wand, more money to everybody. And sure, you'd get a lot of people who are just doing junk, but I feel like everybody could be helped by having more money.
Couldn't hurt.
Yeah.
Roof over your head and a hot meal.
Yeah.
We'll take it, right?
Yeah.
I long ago in my early days of starting out too, sage advice was given to me by, again, trying to figure out what's theater, how do I do this?
Yeah.
It's like, be comfortable where you lay your head.
Yes, right.
At the end of the day, because guess what? You're going to be not working more than you are working.
Right.
Some years.
I think that's I think because I grew up in a house that did feel secure in a way, and that we all learned to cook in our family, and we all learned to take care of ourselves. And so having a place to live, wherever I've lived, in Massachusetts, in Rhode Island, in Seattle, and in New York, I've always made sure that I made that place what I wanted it to be. And that has really helped.
Yeah, but having money is part of that, and being able to afford that is major way.
Yeah.
So now that you have some more time on your hands, that you've jettisoned the tenured professor role, what are you going to spend time doing? Other than hanging out in Berlin, are you going to travel? Obviously you're still going to keep designing, right?
Yeah, I hope to keep designing. I have no, we're usually booked, 3 to 6 months in advance. So I don't have anything after June this year. And I have to learn German. I do want to cook more different things. We definitely will travel. the apartment that we're moving into needs a lot of renovation, so I'll be doing a lot of that.
Hopefully good plumbing this time.
Yes, some plumbing, but it definitely needs some plumbing. But it's on a ground floor, so I know it won't leak from above. Read more. I haven't read books in a long time. I'd like to do that. I might try learning to paint, which I only do for theater, so I don't do for fun. So I'd like to do that. Stuff like that.
Curious how you're going to just kind of tying it all together here. What we talked about.
Yeah.
What is your home decor going to look like for your home that you're creating with your now wife in Berlin? In a context is like, do you have an idea of like this play that you're writing together and putting this world together for yourselves?
Not really. I know I'm going through my stuff now, which is like a lifetime of stuff and lots of props and paintings and models and all that kind of stuff. And having to decide every single thing, what I'm going to take and what I'm not. So I haven't. I mean, I've thought of that literally that way. It's like, what setting am I creating for this? Like, what story do I want to tell? Like, do I bring these old New England plates that like have a connection to this place and time to Berlin, and what does that mean? Like, do I want to create that environment? And does anybody know? Am I just writing this script in my head that no one's ever going to notice?
But it's your script. That's the most important thing.
It totally is.
And it's for you.
It's very strange.
You're the audience as well as the creator in this, which is bizarre. But people will enjoy it because you're very talented.
Yeah, so I have thought about that a lot, and I'm not quite sure yet. I mean, I think essentially Marlene and I both have a lot of different friends, and I think that we do want to create a place that people feel like they can come over. So, we do have a big room that will be the kitchen, and the first thing we bought for it was this old table from probably like the 1820s. That's a long table that can fit lots of chairs around it, because we thought that's what we want to have first.
Communal.
Yeah, communal area. So I feel like it should be that kind of like a fun area that everybody can gather and make stuff. She has 50 instruments. She plays everything, stringed instruments. We found an organ on the streets of Inwood, and we dragged it up 5 flights of stairs, and it's in our apartment.
So
if anybody wants it,
coming to Germany or no?
No, if anybody wants a free organ, it works. It's been on recordings and everything. So there'll be lots of instruments. I'll bring some theater stuff. I have paintings by a lot of friends and stuff. I'd like to bring that.
Yeah.
I don't really want to create you can find so much good stuff in Europe too. Well, so I don't really want to bring everything. And I do find a lot of stuff on the street, and you do in Berlin too. And it's like, oh yeah, I want to incorporate that kind of world too. Yeah. So, like my best sets, I think they're a hodgepodge of things from all over. A lot of influences. So, and I love putting my own stuff on the stage, or finding things specifically for a play. That's happened a lot. I was doing a production of Brighton Beach Memoirs by Neil Simon, and it's like I needed like an old table that feels like really solid. And I found one of those round oak pedestal clawfoot tables on 215th Street, my street. Like that week. It's like, the universe gives you that stuff.
I have a feeling after this podcast, everyone's going to be wandering the streets
at
early Saturday morning looking for the dumpster diving on the curbs.
There's always great stuff. I've passed up so many great things.
Well, sure. Apartments are only so big.
Yes, right. And I used to work at Scavengers.
Well, I wanted to bring that up. I'm glad you did, though.
That was a savior job for me. Really, that was a great,
We miss Scavengers.
I miss Scavengers too. Yeah, for people who don't know, Scavengers was like an antique vintage store on 218th Street, right next to where Inwood Hill Farm restaurant is.
It was Indian Road Cafe at the time.
Yes,
and
right.
Then they took it over.
Yeah, right. Yeah. So now it's their kitchen.
Inwood Farm now,
Leela Cooper and Guy Cooper ran it. Yep. And
they moved upstate, right?
For about 10 years, they moved upstate. And for about 5 years, I worked there. And it was when my last big breakup, right before that, into starting at Adelphi. And we both had dogs, and I knew a lot about vintage stuff from buying props, and I used to go in there and buy stuff from her, or she would say, "Oh, just take it and return it," doing it for a show and stuff like that. And finally, she asked me if I went to work there, and it really saved my life. And because sometimes I might make $800 or $900 a month there, working the minimal hours that they were open, but that was just enough. I'm making a few other things to keep me going, to provide my basic needs. And they became great friends. And it was a great neighborhood center. Everybody went through there. Yeah. It was packed with thousands of things. I mean, my apartment aesthetic is essentially scavengers. Oh. I feel like that's what the neighborhood is good at that. Everybody does kind of know each other and help each other out. But I wish that there was more of that sort of small neighborhood stores. Yeah. Just 2 or 3 more. It's great to have little laundries. I love the Inwood Gourmet. It's there, and Ray's Barbershop, all these little things that people who are living in the neighborhood and connected to the neighborhood do. Yeah. I would love to have never left the neighborhood. Like doing those shows with Up was like, this is amazing. Right. And that's why they did it, I think, to bring people from the neighborhood, keep them here with their kids and stuff like that. And I didn't have kids, but ideally, that's the kind of life I would like. And I think in a little way, looking at my students, I think that's what they are realizing, that they want to have the life that they want to have. They don't want somebody to tell them how to do it. And so I think that's a new thing, is that they're figuring out themselves. And it's like, well, don't go to school then. Yeah. I feel like I could have moved to New York City for 5 years and learned all I need to know by getting an apartment, furnishing it, having being $25 short of rent the day before it's due, and then having a check arrive in the mail from your mom for $25 just by chance. I had to go through all that. So I don't think you need school exactly. But I think small neighborhood theaters or small neighborhood communities, that's what's going to be the future, I think, is, getting smaller.
I've created a company on that whole concept.
You have. You are the David Merrick of the neighborhood, or
I'm nicer than him, though.
Yeah, but, nicer. Not the same temper, yes, exactly, but just as smart and witty and savvy, probably, I'm sure.
Yeah, it's just an impresario.
Yes, right.
You're what do you call it? You're like friendly neighborhood impresario.
Yes, exactly.
Spider-Man.
Yeah.
But I agree with you. I love the fact you said everything that I was just like, you were holding the mirror up to nature for me, going like, yeah, I agree. Like, I started in Inwood Art Works, the whole idea of like, how great is it to be able to live and work in your own neighborhood?
Yeah.
I mean, it's just, I grew up in Cincinnati, and so, I would see, Pete Rose and at the grocery store, and Tony Perez, and these heroes that were you would see down playing baseball or the Bengals or whoever else, and you're kind of like, wow, they live here too, and they work here too, and so and I thought, and I think you said that's a really wonderful thing to be able to aspire for too, and it's also, I think it's wonderful, like you're doing. It's like, I want to say, it's like, you don't have to come to New York to make a difference. Like, it takes a lot more guts to go to a small community like in Waukesha, Wisconsin, or where there isn't a lot of art, and create something for that community that the community can actually call theirs.
Right. Yes. Yeah. Right. It can happen anywhere. Yeah. And that's what I think going to Berlin, that's what I want to do first, is just like, who's right around me and what's going on right around me. Because I would like to actually decide how my life is going to be, instead of in New York. I didn't know what was going on. I just said yes to everything.
Well, John, we wish you all the best in your next chapter. And before we say goodbye, where can we send people to find out more about you and your work? Do you have a website or anything like that? Or I
have a very outdated website.
We'll send them there, unfortunately, because there's no else to send them.
Yeah, I think I don't think I put anything on it in 5 years, and it was very rudimentary. I made it in 2 days in 2013. It's johnmcdermottdesign.com.
There you go, folks. Yeah. But otherwise, you can see him and his designs all up and down, United States and maybe Berlin coming up.
Yeah, come to Theater Aspen in June and see Steel Magnolias.
Hey, all right. Very good. Yeah. Shout out to Theater Aspen. And like I said, Emily Zeck's over there and a whole bunch of other people, Jen Thompson, right? And a whole bunch of other theater folk that have kind of migrated over there from New York. You could do it too, why not in Aspen, right? All right. Well, thanks again, John, for
welcome.
being here.
Thank
Always
you.
wonderful to see you.
Likewise.
Betcha. So thanks to John McDermott for joining me on this Artist Spotlight edition of Inwood Art Works On Air. It's where I meet the musicians, filmmakers, writers, theater makers, and artists of all stripes who make their home here in northern Manhattan. Please show us some love right now by rate and review this podcast on Apple Podcasts 5 stars. And it really helps us, I'll tell you that much right now. Many thanks to the Church of Good Shepherd here in Inwood for hosting us, and to HeightSites.com for uptown promotional support. You can support On Air and all of our programming making a tax-free donation to inwoodartworks.nyc/donate or via Venmo at Inwood Art Works. Be sure to follow us on social media to keep up all that we do, which includes the Inwood Film Festival, Filmworks Al Fresco, pop-up art galleries, live performances, and so much more. Inwood Art Works On Air is proud to be supported in part by public funds, the New York State Department of Cultural Affairs, in partnership with City Council and the New York State Council on the Arts, with the support of the Office of the Governor and the New York State Legislature. From the top of Manhattan and the bottom of our hearts, thank you so much for tuning in. This is Aaron Sims for Inwood Art Works On Air.